Welcome to Accelerate My Practice. So glad you could join me here today. Today I want to talk about what happens when you have crazy rapid growth, because sometimes that happens. Sometimes it happens when you were not doing well before and all of a sudden you're like, holy cow, I'm doing really good. Sometimes you were doing really, really well and you just explode even further. And it seems sort of appropriate because I'm standing here in front of, right there, is I-25, Interstate 25, which goes in between Denver and Colorado Springs with Pikes Peak right there. I want to talk about the rapid growth that can happen and the challenge that it can bring. And I love to use the illustration of whack-a-mole. Because what happens with rapid growth is all of a sudden you're doing really, really well, but when you do really, really well and it changes, there's no such thing as a perfect system. And what I mean by that is there's a bottleneck in every single system. And I learned this in manufacturing during MBA school. And you'll solve one bottleneck and you'll create another bottleneck. Then you solve that bottleneck, you'll create another one. Because there's no such thing as a perfect system. So when you have crazy growth, what ends up happening is you play whack-a-mole going, where's the next bottleneck going to creep up and what's the problem associated with it? Now the good news is, depending on what your growth model looks like and where the problems are in your practice, we're pretty good at anticipating this. Because to me, the key to long-term business success is to have the ability to understand and predict the pattern, right? And I've been in lots and lots of offices, so I can literally look at numbers and go, okay, based on your numbers, I know what's going on in this practice. It's scary, the stuff I can predict, because I've looked at enough practices and enough numbers that I can see the patterns. So the same thing happens. Let's assume you're at, I don't know, $100,000 a month practice and all of a sudden you explode. I mean, we had a practice that went up $50,000 last month. So you go from 100 to 150,000. Where would you guess, and I want you to answer the question out loud, where would you guess the next problem's going to be? Did you answer? Come on, say it fast, go, because I can't stand dead air. What happens often is your AR creeps up. Because now we don't have the infrastructure in the front office to handle the volume of people and transactions going on, so our AR tends to increase. So now all of a sudden we put some focus there, and now when we put the focus in solving and fixing the AR, what tends to happen? Well, we took our eyes off of the fill the schedule or the fill the hygiene. So the challenge becomes, how can we be more systematic about it to recognize the patterns to anticipate? Now the good news is you've got a professional coach in your office. They understand these patterns because they've seen these patterns a lot of times. And it gives them the ability to brace for going, okay, I'm sure in this scenario it's going to be right over here, so we need to start working on this spot over here. And it gives them the ability to do that. So the question becomes, when you have crazy rapid growth, what should you do? How should you anticipate it? And what can you do to not break the system? What's the plan? What's the plan to handle crazy change? Maybe is a better way to phrase this show than crazy rapid growth. Because crazy change does happen. And if you don't have a plan to anticipate it, sometimes we get caught, and it really stinks to get caught. So what I would encourage you to do is sit down with your coach and say, hey, right now I'm here, wherever here is. I want to be here. Maybe it's huge growth, maybe it's sustained growth, or maybe I'm in the midst of this huge ride. Well, if I go up the roller coaster, what's going to happen? Eventually I'm going to go down. What can I do to prevent the downturn from being tough and challenging and scary? Or what can I do for the downturn just to be little? How can I make all these changes take place? Strongly encourage you to have a conversation with your coach about how can you anticipate your business when winter is coming and the challenges you might face. So whatever the crazy change is that takes place, you're prepared for it and it doesn't scare you anymore. And what you'll find is if you start thinking this way, you sleep great at night. I mean, I used to be the person who was freaked out and stressed out about stuff. And now every now and then I'll get an email and I'll look at it and be like, I'm not reading that today. I'm going to go to bed first. My wife recently just said to me, you're not going to read that? I'm like, no. She's like, that's not killing you? I said, no, because I have peace, because I have a plan. I didn't care what was in the email. I mean, ultimately I do, of course. But in that moment, going to bed, spending time with my wife, I didn't care what was in that email. Because first off, my plan is I'm not going to let that email ruin my night. Secondly, is I have a plan in place regardless of what that email says. And thirdly, the sun's still going to come up tomorrow. Winter's still going to come. Spring will come too. And regardless of where the world's going, after every single storm, there's a rainbow. and there's beauty that comes after the storm. So I've learned to have peace in it to where it doesn't freak me out anymore, and it gives me the ability to handle the storm. And that's what I would hope and pray for you, is that you can find that peace, that regardless of what's going on in your business, you can ride the wave, and it'll just be fun to ride the wave rather than get drowned by it. Hope you enjoyed the show. Can't wait to see you until next week.
What if you could have the practice of your dreams? What's holding you back? Imagine a life where you have everything you ever wanted.